What is your question was the 10-year-old?
No, if there's a minimum. I mean, is there like a 5-year Tawny and a 15-year Tawny, or is it always like straight numbers?
First thing, wine doesn't talk. The second thing, this is a bit tricky, but wine does not talk. So you don't know if you want to say that you use the wine older or younger, you can do. But normally there's no minimums. The minimum is that all the port wine is ruled by an institute. It's a very regulated industry, not industry, but type of wine. So we have what we call Instituto dos Vinhos do Douro e Porto, IVDP, and all the wines, before being able to be sold, have to have the approval. They are tasted blind. There's a series, a panel of tasters that do not know what wine they're tasting, and they have to, okay, what we do is that we produce the 10-year-old, we do a blend, we send the samples to the institute, and we say, okay, we want to sell this wine as a 10-year-old. And it goes into that panel of tasters, and they say, okay, it has color, it has a lot of parameters. Color, odor, all of it. There's even, how do you say, analysis. So, regular analysis. And they say, okay, yes, he has, you can sell it as a 10-year-old, or you can sell it as a 20, or you can sell it as a 30. Yes or no, so it depends. But so this is when you see 10, 20, 30, 40, it has to meet the parameters that the Port Institute establishes, which are rigorous, actually.
And
normally, just to put in context, we normally don't take the risk of sending a sample to the Port Institute, asking them to classify a 20-year-old with much younger wines, because we know it's not going to pass. So what we do, and it depends on the style of each house, of course, but we tend to use older wines than younger. Okay, so we actually are delivering more to the customers than what we could.
And on what occasions you drink Tawnies? Is it more food friendly than vintage ports, or it's more like an aperitif? Or?
You were asking which one are my favorite 5 minutes before starting, which was my favorite, if it's Tawnies or vintage. It depends on the occasion. I do like a lot vintage ports. Older vintage ports are superb, but Tawnies are what I consider the all-road wines. They're good for any occasion. It's easy to serve. It's easy to preserve. And I'm going to try to put all these into some logic. This wine, first of all, should be drank slightly chilled. Okay? So if you have it at home, I put it in the fridge, and if it is too cold, just leave it. Leave it there on the table, the temperature will go up, and you feel all the different flavors or aromas going through. So slightly chilled. Then it's a wine with some sweetness, of course, but with some nice acidity that normally with cheeses and I love foie gras, so foie gras is also very good pairing with this, but with a crème brûlée, with a apple strudel, or normally for desserts. But normally, yes, for desserts. The big difference for the rubies is that the classic food pairing for ruby is probably chocolate, or red fruits, or black fruits. These ones are more caramel or nutty, or so you're going to see it in the nose. I think we should start tasting otherwise. So what I would do, I would start with a 10, 20, 30, 40. You can see, first of all, if you want, the first thing is to look at the color. The evolution of the color, if you stand up against the white, you can see an evolution of the color. And this evolution goes from a more ruby, more reddish color to a more to a lighter color in the middle. And then if you notice, sometimes the 40 years old sometimes is darker than the 30, sometimes. So normally the evolution of color goes into a red, deep ruby. If it is on the tawnies, it goes, you start losing all the red colors. So you also start losing the red fruit aromas, or black fruit. It goes into a lighter color. So you start having like a brownish color, light brownish color. And then when the wine starts concentrating so much, because these wines, they age in casks. So the casks, there's a lot of evaporation. The angels normally come at night and they drink. But we lose about 1.5% to 2% every year. So in theory, to make a bottle of 40 years old, you need 2 bottles at the beginning, almost, okay? Because half of it has evaporated. So you start losing this color, and then the wine starts concentrating, getting more concentrated, and it starts to get darker again, but with some green rim and more like a more concentrated wine. So if you steer the 40 years old, you see the rim normally it starts getting a little bit of a greenish color.
And you don't fill up the barrels, so you don't fill up the barrels.
Normally you fill up with when these wines are made, we have 50 barrels, all of the same wine, let's say, all of the same component. Normally, what we do is that we take from that cask, we fill up the others. From one of the casks, we fill up the others, normally. Okay?
Like a job you do once a year, or in between? There's no...
Normally every 2-3 years.
Okay.
Because normal evaporation, you lose a significant amount. But when you lose a lot is when you do the racking. Racking means, so you have those 50 casks, all of the same wine, but each cask develops differently. So what we do, to give a little bit of consistency to the wine, we remove all the wine from the casks, we blend it, all the wine, and then we put it again on the casks. They're all from the same year, from the same, let's say the same wine, but it's just to make the evolution exactly, let's say, as similar as possible, let's say. So, if you notice, I'm going to let you go through the 10, 20, 30, 40. Taste them all in a row, smell them all, try to see. Eventually, on the 10-year-old, you might smell a little bit more, still a little bit of fruit, and then you start getting to on the 20-year-old, you might get some more caramel, more orange peel, some figs as well, a little bit of figs. On the 30-year-old, you get that orange peel, so the zest of the orange. And on the 40-year-old, it's more nutty, more even some notes of cigar.
Is there a difference in the percent of alcohol? So do you lose alcohol when
No, so the alcohol is all the same, 20%. What do you do? But I'm going to ask that question later on. Which one do you find that is the sweetest, if it is the 10 or the 40? Huh?
So the 10 years old, so you have 10 years old wines, but also 9 years?
You can have a wine at 8, 7.
Okay.
Normally, to be honest, we tend to use not so much young wines. Maybe this is already some help for the blending. What we normally do is that we take all the wines, the core of the wine, the bases, the big part of the wine are older. And the young wines come up just to bring a little bit of color and life to the wine, let's say. And sometimes it's just enough, a little bit of wine to make the wine totally different. On the 10-year-old, so the basis is all, on all of them, but the bases are much older wines than younger, and sometimes it's just a tiny touch of a younger wine. Below 10 years, just to add on, there's some, we have 10, 20, 30, 40, but above that we don't have anything. We have what we call the single harvest, 10-year colheitas, and below the 10-year-old we have what we call the reserve port, okay? We can call that reserve ports. So these normally are wines made with younger wines than 10-year-old, okay?